Welcome. My name is Elise Raudebush, and today's therapy tip is the metaphor, water your flowers. Water your flowers is my favorite metaphor, and I'm really excited to share it with you today because I think it's an extremely helpful and important concept. Imagine that we are gardeners, and spreading all around us is the garden of our life, with all of our experiences, thoughts, feelings. Everything that comprises our life is there in front of us. We have flower beds for work or school, flower beds for each of our relationships, our culture, our communities. And the powerful tool that we have, our gardening tool, is our attention. And our attention is like water. So whatever we like that we want to have more of and we pay attention to, we get more of it. Whatever we don't like that we pay attention to, we get more of it. Because the truism of water is that it waters and grows flowers and weeds alike. So ideally, we should be turning an indifferent back to all the things in our life that we don't want to see more of, and paying close attention to all the things that we want to see more of. I know that there's something that feels counterintuitive to the idea of not paying attention to our problems, worries, and pain. There's something compelling that draws us toward them, that makes us want to talk about them and think about them, that keeps us up at night worrying about them. There's a huge amount of time and energy that we spend on something that we say we want to have less of in our life. And all of that time and attention that we spend actually strengthens the weeds. When we think of something, we fire neural pathways and every time we think about something, those neural pathways fire. So that, there's that adage, what fires together, wires together. And that's referring to the fact that in our brain, every time we think of something, and especially if we think about it with emotion, it gets a little bit more connected and a little stronger. And so then the brain can go there a little more quickly, a little more readily, and it's a little harder to pull away from. The brain also helpfully connects that to any other experiences or memories or thoughts that are related. So, for example, we could be thinking of a problem, and our brain would say, hey, can I help? Remember that time when that also happened? Remember that time when we thought it was going to happen, but it didn't really happen, but it could have happened? And so let's bring all those to our attention, and I'm going to keep a really close eye in case something like that happens again. So the brain will help us by giving us a lot more of whatever it thinks we want to be seeing. A frequently thought becomes a belief, and then the beliefs become how we experience the world. We are literally creating our life experience. Furthermore, paying attention to all these weeds takes away from time and energy that we could have been spending watering our flowers, improving and increasing the experiences that we enjoy in our life. So why do we focus on weeds and not flowers? I think the answer is in our biology. The brain's paramount function is to keep us alive. So when given the choice between a stalking tiger and a thrilling sunset, the stalking tiger is always going to win because survival is imperative and joy is not. The catch arises because our brain casts a broad net when it scans for threat. Most of the time, our current dangers are not stalking tigers. They are things like an aggressive driver during our commute, or a faux pas at last night's dinner party, or a fender bender. Those things can leave us jittery and on edge for days. And most of life's threats aren't just single events. Far more insidious are the chronic stresses that our nervous system highlights for us. Religious, sexual, racial discrimination, poverty, chronic health issues, unemployment, marital problems. Each of us perpetually has a host of short-term and chronic stressors of varying intensity that our body urges us to keep a close eye on. The danger-watching, alarm-sounding part of our brain is called the amygdala. It houses raw, life-preserving instinct, and we share it with all mammals. Yet other mammals don't seem to lie awake at night, replaying embarrassing moments, or stewing about being poorly treated. Arguably, our downfall is our most recently evolved part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. This provides our reasoning ability. So humans have both the capacity to look for dangers lurking behind every corner and the dubious capacity to ruminate on these perceived threats endlessly. This provides a lot of potential for weed watering. So how can we begin to notice when the brain is fixating on something negative? One way is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to notice what the brain and body are bringing to our attention with interest, but not with reactivity. We can see a plant coming into our focus and identify it as a weed by noticing what we experience in our body. Any kind of discomfort signals to you that you're focusing on something that you possibly don't want to be focusing on. It's not helpful to be focusing on. And possibly at that point, we can then shift to a related flower. For example, if we're thinking about a subject, we don't have to think of the opposite if it's a disturbing or just discomforting subject. We can just think of a slightly better thought related to it. And then from there, we may be able to find a slightly better thought related to that until we can get to something positive. So we can kind of start with a weed, some kind of problem or negative thought, notice that, shift to something a little bit more neutral, and then more neutral still, and then more neutral still, until we can bring it to something positive. There are times when we cannot think of anything positive or even neutral about a subject. When that happens, change your focus to anything in your garden of life that brings you joy or pleasure. It can be a memory. It can be an activity that you enjoy. Anything that you can engage with fully can be particularly helpful in a sensory way. So you can sing a song or go for a walk. Being outside can be very helpful. Engaging in exercise can be very useful. Reading a book, watching a some sometimes temperature can be a useful thing to modify. So having a hot drink or eating some ice cream, that's good for a number of reasons. But really finding anything else that you can think of or experience that will bring you a better feeling state can be very effective at bringing yourself away from a thought that's not helpful. So that's not to say that it's easy. I think that recognizing that dwelling on problems and difficulties and being aware that that's not helpful is a challenging thing. And to get disciplined enough to notice and refocus away from it can take a lot of practice and persistence. I often tell my clients and remind myself that we can have challenges in our life and feel stressed and worried and consumed by them, or we can have problems in our life, challenges in our life, and feel some peace and acceptance. Either way, we're going to have the challenges in our life. One of the things that's important to realize is that being in that state of upset, when our brain is distressed, when that amygdala, which is in the back of the brain, when it is strongly activated, it hijacks, it prevents that prefrontal cortex, the neocortex, from engaging fully. So we kind of say that it hijacks it and it goes offline. We literally are just not able to think clearly about something when we're feeling strong emotion about it. We can feel the difference when we're thinking about a problem, when we are watering a weed or when we're actually nurturing a flower. When we're talking about a problem and it feels distressing, then we're likely watering weeds. If we're talking about a challenge or problem or thinking about that and it's feeling productive or useful or problem solving, then really what we're doing is watering little flowers that surround that problem, and flowers of hope and of solution. And that's a positive thing. It's not that we can't look at our challenges at all. It's that we really want to make sure that when we're thinking about them and looking at them, we're doing it in a way that's feeling positive. When we're calm and feeling in a more positive place, I think that that's when we can connect to our foundation of strength. And from that place, we often have great clarity. I encourage you to notice how you're feeling when you're thinking about various things, when you're thinking about things that are difficult for you, and experiment with making small shifts to bring your attention into a more useful and better feeling state. Know that there are going to be times in our lives when we do a lot of weed watering, when we have a lot of challenges and we get kind of stuck in them. But I also want you to know that there's a lot of beauty in your garden. And even in those difficult times, it is possible to seek that out and find that. I wish you well, and I thank you for joining me today.